Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Goblin RIDES Podcast. Today I'm joined by the wifey. How you doing, wifey?
Hello.
Doing all right?
Yeah.
We're finally back from Italy.
Yes, we are.
After some long ordeals. We'll talk about that later in the podcast today. Yeah, I mean, some pressing news is the ZX-6R. I was going to say recall, but I don't know if a recall's actually been announced yet, but it's been all over social media. I'm sure some of you guys have probably already heard about it. So that's going to be the first thing we talk about today. And then, we'll talk about crazy Italians in about 10-15 minutes time. All right, so we'll just get straight into it today. So if you haven't heard already, Kawasaki ZX6R 2024 and 2025 are having some major engine problems, basically. At least that's what social media make it out to be anyway. But pretty much Kawasaki have issued a it's like a letter, basically, or an email to all retailers to stop selling the bikes, and also that anyone who owns one already shouldn't ride it. If you continue riding it, it might void your warranty.
Right. So
Okay.
they're making a service announcement, basically, that they need to...
Yes. Yeah. And
people need to stop using the bike.
And I mean, this started happening, I think, around about 6 months ago. But as the issue has become more widespread, that's when I think Kawasaki have stepped in. They're like, right, okay, let's deal with this.
Yeah.
Because KTM were having some similar problems. I can't remember with which bike or which engine it was, but they were having similar engine problems, and they were trying to sweep it under the rug. They weren't telling anyone about it. They weren't notifying riders or owners of the issues with this particular engine. I think it was like a camshaft bearing or a camshaft, one of the cams. I can't remember. But anyway, they were having some engine issues themselves. And a lot of people are comparing now, because everyone goes on about the reliability of Japanese brands and all that stuff. And this comes about. And then all of a sudden, everyone's like, you're just as bad as everybody else.
But when was the last time Kawasaki had something like this?
Never, as far as I remember. But they have had recalls and things before.
But everyone has recalls. Every brand has a recall.
Almost every bike has some kind of recall at some point, especially if it's new off the production line.
But it's not just bikes. Every product, every brand has a recall because of something.
Yeah.
But Kawasaki, this is the first major one that Kawasaki's mentioned, right? Whereas a lot of other brands have had maybe more than one. Yeah,
well, I don't know about that. I don't know. But every manufacturer has these kinds of issues, and it's all well and good having a production line and everything going as quickly as it can to put the parts together and what have you. But when there's an issue, especially an issue like this, at this point we don't know how many bikes this affected.
Yeah.
All right. But there's tens of thousands of these bikes that have been sold all around the world. And so it's well, okay, are all 10,000 being affected, or 20,000 being affected, or are there, is it just a few of them? But that's the problem with mass production of things, is that if there's an issue on the production line somewhere and you don't pick it up until owners, after a few years, have had them, it becomes a big problem. Yeah. So the issue is specifically with a crankshaft bearing or bushing, whatever you want to call it. And apparently this is... I can't remember exactly what the issue is, but I think it's over-torqued. So that the bushing or the bearing has been over-torqued, and under high load, it will seize up, apparently. It will seize up, lock up, and it will give you a lack of power, basically. You'll notice a lack of power, which doesn't sound all that bad, and that's what I think is really going on. But some riders have been reporting that the engine seizes up. It locks up totally. So, I don't know. I suppose we'll have to wait and see, the widespread, how widespread this issue is, and, whether or not it results in just a lack of power, or if it does lock up the engine, because they're two totally different things. If it's lacking in power, you can still limp it home, and it's not going to cause you to crash, right? But if the engine totally locks up and you're riding at 70, 80 mile an hour, can be a serious problem.
Yeah.
Imagine your rear wheel locking up at 70 or 80 mile an hour. That's quite a big deal. So anyway, it's been picked up and it's being dealt with, and well, I don't really know where to start with this because it sucks.
Yeah. And
the 600 Super Sports are probably the most popular around the world, because I mean I toot the horn of 600s all the time because they're the perfect balance between having that race-like experience of a race bike, but also that it's not going crazy too far in the other direction like a 1000 does, where they're barely rideable on the streets. So 600s are arguably the best super sports that you can ride on the street. And I mean, how long have 600s been a thing for? A long time. You know, they've been like the standard of Japanese kind of performance engines in the middleweight class anyway for a long time now. So this does kind of suck, and anyone who has bought a motorcycle, a 600, a ZX6R, a 636 from 2024 to 2025 now have got to miss out on the riding season.
Yeah,
basically, which it really does suck. And I'm sorry for you guys. I'm sorry that this is the hand that you were dealt, but just know that the bike will be fixed. All right, Kawasaki, they've always, even if it cost them a fortune, a bit like Toyota, you know, when Toyota has had recalls before and they're bad recalls, they will send out letters to owners, they'll get the cars taken away, and then they'll fix them, no matter what the cost is, no matter how long it takes, they will fix them. And I have no doubt that's going to be the case with Kawasaki as well, because the crankshaft is like in one of the most difficult places to access on a bike.
Yeah.
Because you've got to take off the fairing, you've got to take off the drive chain, the front sprocket, you've got to take off the gearbox, you've got to take out the clutch. I think that's it. You might even have to take the head off. I don't know, but there's going to be a lot of labour if Kawasaki have got to fix all of these bikes.
Yes.
There are rumours that if you get past 5,000 or 6,000 miles, you're probably in the clear. It probably doesn't affect you. But if your bike is within 3,000 miles, say within the braking period, then it's likely that, I say likely, you may or may not have this same issue. So, I mean, I've written some notes here about what's going on, and I mean, I suppose we can give our opinions on the matter. But as much as it's a problem, don't worry, Kawasaki, they'll fix your bikes. It will take a bit of time, but they will fix them. And I mean, perhaps one of the things that we should probably talk about that's most important is whether or not this is going to damage their reputation. What do you think?
I don't know, because it's okay. So I think it's a two-pronged answer, really. One, like I've already mentioned, Kawasaki have had a mistake. They've, on this era of bikes, right?
Yep.
This happens to every brand, regardless, bikes, cars, hair straighteners. It happens.
Yep.
It's how that company then responds.
Correct.
And how they deal with it. So you said it was KTM that pushed everything under the carpet?
And, well, all European brands have had an instance of that in the past.
So let me just take KTM for example. Sure. I didn't realise that. So now I'm thinking, well, what else could KTM have hidden? Yeah. But at least Kawasaki have gone, guys, we've made a mistake, like, hands up, we'll fix it, but please stop riding your bike. Because they've said if you don't stop riding it, you may void your warranty. So just to be safe. And yeah, I don't think it will negatively impact anyone, or negatively impact Kawasaki, because they've been very upfront and they've been very open about it. And
as far as we're aware, the vast majority of owners of a ZX6R are probably unaffected by this.
They probably have no idea.
The thing is that so as more and more of these people have had this similar kind of problem, Kawasaki have said, right, that's enough. No more selling, no more riding of these bikes until we've diagnosed the problem.
Yeah.
And when they find the problem, that's when they can start fixing it. But there's no guarantee that this issue is going to affect every single bike that they've sold in the last year and a half, because all these bikes are in warranty.
Yeah.
I don't know about the rest of the world, but here in the UK, over the last couple of years, Kawasaki have been offering 4-year warranties on all their new bikes, as opposed to 2. So this is well within warranty.
Yeah.
So Kawasaki have an obligation to fix all of these problems,
but the thing
and they will. But like you say, there'll be a threshold where they're like, right, okay, we've got to investigate this further.
But the thing is, I think the fact is that I didn't know anything about this before you mentioned it today.
Mm-hmm.
And I follow quite a lot of Kawasaki riders and a lot of Kawasaki stuff and just general motorbike stuff on my socials. And the fact that this is the first time I'm hearing about it makes me think that it's not so dramatic that everyone is talking about it. It's not on like my Google home page. It's none of that.
It is. It's being reported quite heavily.
I've not seen anything.
But it's being reported mostly by unhappy riders, rightly so, that have had their bikes break down for no apparent reason. But these are the same people that are making the biggest noise about it.
Yeah. It's obviously not reached me.
But regardless, they'll fix your bikes. Like, I know that we take that for granted, but the amount of companies that will just turn around and say, sorry, you've got to deal with it yourself. You've got to pay up front for the cost. That isn't going to happen with people who own. That's the thing, you guys. When you buy a Japanese bike, doesn't matter if it's from Honda, Suzuki, Yamaha, Kawasaki, they will all do the same to try and fix issues for the people that own them, because they don't take their reputation for granted.
Yeah.
You know, and when things like this happen, it sucks, but at least you know that the brand is going to be trustworthy enough that they're going to fix your bike.
Yeah.
But if you haven't heard this news so far and you've bought a ZX6R in the last 12 to 18 months, then maybe stop riding it for now. Check the, I was going to say IMEI number, but that's for phones. Check your VIN number and see if it comes up on the database of recalls or issues, because you'll probably find it. If you've given your email address to the dealership when you bought the bike, you should already have an email in your inbox from Kawasaki directly saying, do not ride this bike until further notice. But this issue has been made public not just by angry people. It has been made public by Kawasaki themselves as well. They're not trying to hide it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Okay. But so this started happening 2024, and I find this very coincidental. Because do you remember when Kawasaki, they stopped selling the ZX6 in Europe and the UK?
No.
You don't remember that?
No.
So that was, I believe, from 2021 or 2022 through to the beginning of 2024. And we did a live show, I think.
I remember they stopped selling 600s, but I couldn't remember Kawasaki specifically.
Well, so all of them, they stopped. So including Honda, they stopped selling their 600s in the UK and in Europe. But then the end of that year, I think, might have been 2022. I can't remember. But the beginning of 2024, they announced that the ZX6R was coming back and the CBR 600R was coming back. And we were all like, yay, that's amazing, because these bikes are dying. You know, everyone is moving away from the 600 platform for emissions reasons. And it just so happens that bikes sold at that point onwards are potentially affected by this. So it does make me wonder if this is one of those things that Kawasaki have had to do to try and meet emission standards again.
Maybe.
Because it's clearly not the same engine. It's clearly not the same engine that they had in 2019, in 2020, leading up to the ban, where they had to stop selling them.
Yeah.
So they had to redesign them in some way, somehow, to get them to fit within these emission standards. And I bet you that there's something that went wrong in that process. I bet you. I mean, that's just a conspiracy theory at this point. It's a theory, but it's a bit coincidental that
the timeline fits.
Yeah. These are the brand new bikes that fit within EU emission standards, and they've got an issue like this. The funny thing is that this is just a crank bearing. I say just crank bearing. There's no reason why that would have any impact on emissions of the bike whatsoever. But you know what I mean? When they redesign an engine or redesign something, you don't know how many bits and pieces they've had to accommodate for or readjust to make the bike work. It's interesting, isn't it? It's just a little thing that I thought about earlier today. I mean, there isn't really that much else here. The only thing I've got left is that there's a paper trail. You know, these manufacturers, they make notes of all the different parts, when they're fitted, and at which point in the production line the issue is occurring. Yeah. So it might take them a little bit of time to investigate, but as soon as they've figured it out, and as soon as they've been able to replicate the problem, that's when you're going to start hearing news about whether or not you can start riding your bikes again. So, but I don't think it'll be long. Give it a month, you know, because a lot of people are saying, oh, I'm going to miss out on the whole riding season now because I can't ride my bike and all that. That might not be the case, you guys. So just give it a month or so, and you never know, you might get the all clear that you can ride your bike again.
Yeah.
I mean, there is not rumors, but people are kind of murmuring that if you're having to do a job like this, it might be easier just to replace the whole engine. So that might be what Kawasaki will have to do with some of these people. If that's the case, that's great. You basically have a brand new bike again. Even if you put 6,000 miles on it, you're getting a brand new engine. Mm. They might even just give you a brand new bike. They probably will. They'll probably just give you a whole new bike. So, you know, don't complain too much, you guys. You might be all right in the end, as much as it's really annoying right now for you. But it's one of those things that comes up because it's a Japanese brand.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's making a drama about it because, oh, it's Honda that's done it. Oh, it's Kawasaki. They've caused problems. See, they're not as reliable as everyone says they are. Yes, they are. Don't worry about it. One last thing, actually, that I did want to mention is, because again, this is kind of like this is just something that I'm thinking about. These 600s. So for the past 20 years, 25, 30 years, manufacturers have been trying to push the boundaries of what 600 can do. Yeah, for a long time now. And I do kind of wonder if that some of these issues are coming up because they're trying to simply push too much power out of these bikes. They're trying to get too much RPM out of them. They're trying to put them under too much pressure, and these engines just can't handle it anymore. And okay, you wouldn't have thought that any of these brands would go that far, but when you think that 600s were producing 100 horsepower 20 years ago, and now they're producing 125 horsepower and more torque at higher RPMs, it does make you wonder whether they cannot do anything more with these platforms now. This is it.
Yeah, they've pushed.
And as much as they're trying to push them to try and increase the specs, to make the specs look pretty and all that, yeah, have they reached their limits? And I mean, you could argue that's the reason why Kawasaki introduced a 636cc engine as opposed to a 599cc that everyone else is using, to try and get that little bit of extra torque, little bit of extra power up and above and over the competition. These designs just have their limits, and I think that could be part of the issue here. That as much as these bushings or bearings are cranked to their torque specs and things like that, how they're meant to be torqued, they're just trying to push them too hard, and the components just simply can't handle them.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's something else to consider, you guys. But yeah, anyway, so that's that. You guys let us know down in the comment section below about how you feel about it. Have you been affected by it? And let's be clear here, it's only 2024 and 2025 bikes that are affected. Anything before that, you should be okay. All right? So just keep that in mind. All right. But yeah, so next topic then.
Yes.
Italians. Okay. So we would have done this at the start of the podcast, but I kind of thought, well,
let's get the important thing out
this thing is more important than
our trip
to Italy. But I think it's fair to say that Italians are crazy.
Yeah, they
absolutely mad. So yes, they are crazy, but. So our experience in Italy, in and around Rome, was very, very positive. On the last day, we did have a slight problem.
I can't help but laugh about it now.
Yeah.
If I don't laugh, I will actually cry.
So we were staying in a hotel. Our checkout was at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
But our flight wasn't leaving until 8:30 in the evening that same day.
Yes.
So we had basically a day to kill. We still had the rental car up until 6:30 in the evening. So we were like, right, there's a lake nearby. Let's go and travel to that lake and let's see what's going on. Let's see how it looks. Because we were in Rome for a wedding, for my cousin's wedding, and we were staying at a different lake.
Yeah.
So I was curious. I was like, right, okay, let's travel to this one. Let's see if it's any better, if it's any worse. Let's just go see and let's spend the day there. Let's have a nice chilled out day before we go home. And so it was kind of ruined from the offset. As soon as we arrived there, I noticed that we were being followed. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. But I noticed that because we were looking for somewhere to park along the lakefront, and we found a little public car park. We went and parked into it, and this car that was following us followed us in. And as they drove past, because we reversed into the car parking spot, as they drove past us, I noticed that the person in the car was eyeing up the car and looking in and around it. They were checking it out, basically. They spent a little bit too much time looking at the car than they probably should have been normally. I didn't think anything of it at the time. I thought they were just looking for a parking spot. But
you even commented that we found the last parking spot.
Yeah, I made that comment there and then.
Yeah.
And anyway, I noticed that this person, they found another parking spot that was a few slots over, and they reversed into it. So me and wifey, we turned around and we went to go and pay for parking. And bearing in mind, because there's a translation barrier and we were trying to figure out how the parking machine worked, it took us about 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
To get a ticket.
Yeah.
And pop it in the car window. In that time, our rental car, had been broken into, and our suitcases had been stolen out from the boot. And now we tried to be clever. We reversed the car up against a wall and a shrub, so you couldn't open the boot door.
No.
And so this person was clever. They opened the back doors. They brought the seats down, pulled the seats down, the rear seats, and then they pulled the suitcases out. So they stole all of our luggage. They stole probably best part of, I don't know, man. Because we were like in our wedding outfits, we had wedding shoes, we had all sorts of really expensive stuff in those suitcases, expensive clothes. You had some of your handbags stolen that were quite expensive. So anyway, that was a bit of a shocker, and at the time we kind of didn't know what to do, because by the time we noticed, they were long gone.
Yeah.
Because they were in this other car. They'd done it without us even hearing.
Didn't hear anything.
Didn't hear anything at all, but they broke into the car. They stole everything that was basically in the car. They must have snuck over and then snuck back into their own car and then drove off.
Yeah.
But we had no idea. We had no idea that all of our kit had been stolen.
Fortunately, I had our passports on me.
Yeah.
And like our AirPods and stuff were in my bag.
Most of the important stuff was on us. Yeah, most of our important stuff was on us.
I mean, we had my handheld console in the car, didn't we? But we put that in a bag under a hoodie, and that was still there when we got back to the car, which was insane. That's
why I'm pretty sure it was this person, because it was a quick job.
It was so quick.
They didn't even look at the bag that was in the footwell.
No.
That arguably had the most valuable bits and pieces in it.
Yeah.
And instead, they just went straight for the boot and straight for the suitcases.
The thing is, like, though, okay, it is just stuff, and I get that, and I know that we're really fortunate. And this is the thing, like, people always try and give you the silver lining, which I appreciate, but what irks you is when actually you've spent a lot of time, I was like, curating your stuff, because I collect designer bags, so I curated that collection. But it's not just that, it's the time that I've worked to be able to pay for these things. And they've stolen things like GHDs they can't even use in that country.
But that's
it's
the thing,
just silly things.
It doesn't matter what they've stolen, does it? If anyone has had anything stolen from them, you know that it sucks, even if it's something that isn't all that valuable.
No.
I mean, I mentioned this to you recently, but wifey used to have a Peugeot 206.
My first car.
Her first car. The window got smashed into, and they stole an aftermarket stereo that was worth £10 on eBay.
We literally replaced it with £10.
New. Yeah. It was worth £10 new off eBay, and they created all of that hassle for us, breaking the window, just for a £10 stereo. It doesn't make any sense.
I sold that car after because it didn't feel the same anymore.
But that's the thing, it doesn't feel the same afterwards. It feels like you're just... I don't know. It doesn't feel like you're in something that's yours anymore.
You feel violated, don't you? No matter what happens.
It's a weird sensation, you guys. So even though it is just things, it's not just about the things. It's about the experience, isn't it?
And you made a really good point when we got home, after we'd kind of like had some time to like get home, and we, you know, all the things we had to do before we got home, was effectively at that point we were homeless. We had nowhere to go.
Yeah. We were,
and so you feel very vulnerable.
Yeah, most vulnerable, because we didn't have anywhere to go. That was the last day.
We didn't speak the language particularly well.
I mean, luckily, we didn't need a change of clothes or anything. I wanted to have a swim in the lake.
So
I wanted to put on my swimming trunks and go and have a swim in the lake. Well, that didn't happen.
Couldn't, no.
Because it got nicked.
So that was the last day.
Anyway.
But...
we had a bit of a mare on the last day that we were there. But
however,
let's comment more on the
roads.
The attitudes, the road attitude of the Italians. So there's a few things that I noticed.
Yeah.
There were lots and lots of scooter riders, lots and lots of motorcycle riders.
Yeah.
That's great. I love it. It was hot.
All the gear all the time doesn't seem to apply.
Right. We'll talk about that, because I mean, what was it, 30, 37, 38, 39, 40 degrees
the whole
C.
time we were there, between 32 and 37.
It was so incredibly hot, you guys. And
unbelievable.
Unless you've been in that kind of weather, you understand why the locals don't bother with jackets, with boots, with jeans, with gloves. They don't bother with any of it.
No, helmets was probably
helmets was the only thing that they wore, but probably because it's a legal requirement to wear a helmet. But that's when ATGAT just falls apart. It's very easy for us in the UK and in Canada and in the United States to say, oh yeah, we wear our gear all the time. And as much as I try to wear all my gear all the time, and to be fair, I have been. Over the last couple of years, I've basically been wearing all of my gear all of the time, but it hasn't been as hot as that.
That was, it was dry heat well.
I don't think I would have been able to. I would have been in that heat for 5 minutes, because even like as you're riding, the wind is hot.
Yeah.
So you don't even get any respite as you're riding, because you're just getting hot air just blowing into your clothes, into your face.
Yeah.
So I love it when these ATGAT guys are like, oh, you're not wearing your gear. Go to Italy. Go to Spain. Go to the south of France and see how people ride their bikes over there.
Yeah.
And you might call them stupid, but there is simply no way that they're going to be able to ride comfortably in all of their gear in that kind of heat.
And safely, because that heat could make you faint. It was horrid.
Honestly, it will dehydrate you so quickly. So I don't blame the locals for not wearing any gear whilst they're riding. But that to me wasn't an issue.
No, it was just an interesting observation.
You guys already know that, right? I think as much as I'm going to encourage all of you to wear all your gear all the time, I won't judge you if you don't.
Yeah.
Unlike 50% of riders on social media, they'll always criticize you for not wearing your gear, right?
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people. But what I do have a problem with was the way how they use the bikes.
Yeah, I was scared.
So lane splitting, I mean, let's differentiate here. So filtering is, for me anyway, when all the cars are stopped.
Yeah.
And you filter in between the traffic, and you
get to the front of the queue.
You either get to the front of the queue, or if the traffic starts moving, you merge into the moving traffic.
Yes.
Right? That is legal here in the UK. If you're trying to do that whilst the traffic is moving, i.e. lane splitting, whilst it's at full pace, that is illegal. You're not allowed to do that in the UK. And it's funny, actually, because there was a video I watched recently on Auto Alex, and he actually said that lane splitting was legal in the UK. It's not.
No.
You're not allowed to do it. But you can tell he hasn't done it enough to know that.
Right.
So I can kind of forgive him for that. But that is misinformation. All right. Here in the UK, you're not allowed to lane split. I don't know what the situation is in Italy, whether you're allowed to do that or not. But regardless, the riders, they didn't care.
Yes.
They would lane split everywhere. It doesn't matter if the traffic was moving at 80 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour. They would lane split all day long. And as much as I kind of admire that assertiveness, that assertive behavior to kind of get around, get traffic behind you so it's not an issue for you, they were doing it in quite a reckless way. And I know that isn't necessarily going to be every Italian rider, but
the majority of the ones we saw,
from what we witnessed, that seems to be the culture over there. All right.
Yeah, and I mean, there was occasions where, and I think the thing is, because we're not used to it, you're not expecting it. And I remember someone was coming up quite quickly on what I would consider the hard shoulder.
Yeah, it's the shoulder, yeah.
Yeah, and their pillion was just on their phone on the back.
Oh,
and
that's
I was
funny.
just like...
That was so funny.
They're going faster than we were, just on their phone. I was like, I would never do that.
That was funny, but again, reckless. Like, imagine losing your phone. It's gone. It'd be long gone if you let go of your phone.
Point.
But, yeah. That's true. That's true, actually, yeah. If they lose the phone and it lands on someone's windshield that's overtaking them...
Yeah,
it can go through the windshield.
It can be dangerous.
But, yeah.
That was... Like, yeah, I wasn't expecting it, and I remember I was just like...
Because I've driven in Spain before.
Yeah.
On a few occasions, and their driving isn't that great either, but honestly, the way how they drive in Spain is so much better than how they drive in Italy. How they ride in Italy. It's bad in Italy, you guys.
I've driven with you in Spain on numerous occasions. And I've driven a little bit myself in Spain.
Yeah.
Absolutely no way in hell I want to drive in Italy. I think I was more alert in Italy. Like, I didn't go on my phone once while we were in the car. Whereas in Spain, I would like kind of be like more chilled and like, I don't know, go on social media or whatever. Yeah. But it was so like, I don't know. I have no words for it because everything that happened, I wasn't expecting it to happen. I know that's probably because I drive over the UK and like I'm very used to how the UK roads are and how people drive typically on the UK roads. But there's just something that made you go, you're taking your life in your hands today.
It does go to show how much better road users are in the UK compared to the European continent. But
maybe I'm just sheltered.
In Italy, that is some of the worst roadcraft I've ever seen, and so much blatant recklessness, not just with their own lives but with other people's lives. It's crazy. And you know, we had a rental car over there, so we had to be so hyper vigilant on anything that was going on around us. I mean, one of the things that I was mostly worried about was being rear-ended.
Yeah.
Because the road conditions were poor.
Oh, the potholes.
There were potholes everywhere. A lot of the main roads are like dirt roads still. I'm like, you're a developed country. Why can't you just build proper roads? Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it got to the point where we were like, actually, when we got to our second hotel, we're like, let's get the train.
Like Italy's a gorgeous country,
it's
and
amazing.
I love it. It's an amazing country, but the road users are
scary
on another level of psycho.
It was like I said, it was just the unexpected. They were doing things that I was just not expecting anyone to do,
and they're not patient at all.
They're not patient.
So, I remember just like as soon as we picked up the car, I was like, right, we've got to take it easy, you're going to take it slow, get used to everything. The Italians, they don't give you a choice. You either, baptism of fire, you get in there and you drive, or you crash, or someone else crashes into you because they're trying to get around you or something like that. The amount of times I was at a junction and some idiot would just... would filter in their cars, would filter to the front of the queue, going the same direction as you are. He's crazy.
So at one point,
it's totally unexpected.
We were trying to go right, so we positioned ourselves to go right, and this smart car came up here.
And I knew exactly what they were doing.
Yeah. And they just literally, but the whole time they were driving, they were like going really fast and weaving in and out of cars, and I was like, oh my God.
You didn't really get much of a choice. You had to just give way to these people.
Yeah, you did.
They don't give you a choice. And if you're not aware either, in Italy, insurance, and I haven't experienced this firsthand, but insurance companies, they will always blame the driver that was behind.
Yeah.
So from an Italian driver's perspective, if they get in front of you, anything they do after that point is your problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to give way an awful lot.
Yeah.
Blew me away, man.
It was hard work.
The driving and the poor quality of driving that they have in Italy and the attitudes that they have over there is insane. The thing is, though, most of these people, they're not going to know how bad their driving is because that's what they grew up in. That's what they just experience on a regular basis. Honestly, Driving in the UK is so much safer. Driving in Spain is so much safer. Driving in France is so much safer. Germany. Driving in Italy is mad.
Scary. But
dangerously mad.
Yeah. I will say, the people that we, until our last day, the people that we encountered were lovely.
Yeah.
They're really nice people, weren't they?
Oh, well, the police are useless, though.
Yeah.
Let's make that very clear. The police are very useless. They might as well be mafia because they don't want to help you. They just want to fob you off on someone else.
We ended up having to go
you have to have an argument with them before they start helping you.
Which we had to do with airport security, or airport police, which
anyway,
is a different story for a different day.
Yeah, we won't talk about that any further today. But anyway, we're back safe and sound. That's the main thing. You know, we weren't hurt in any way, shape, or form.
We saw some amazing things, didn't we?
Yeah. The whole experience was absolutely wonderful. And we were prepared for the pickpockets, and we were prepared for as many things as we possibly could be, but unfortunately
they got to us somehow.
They still got us somehow.
Yeah.
And so that's just one thing that you guys have got to keep in mind if you're traveling to Italy. There are lots of not just individuals but gangs that will do this kind of stuff, and they will target tourists, specifically tourists. So anyway, it is what it is. But you guys let us know what you think down in the comment section below of what we've discussed today, the ZX6R and our troubles in Italy. Let us know what your experiences are of those two things there. But thank you ever so much for joining us on our podcast today. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. If you have, then please go ahead, leave that like, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell down there. I'd really appreciate it. But thank you ever so much again. You guys, you take care. You ride safe. Have a good weekend. We'll catch you all in the next video. Have a good one.